guys, well here we are, end of week 1 of our 12-week challenge. So what I'm going to do at the end of each week is we'll do a bit of data analysis of each session, the week itself, and just sort of some of the things that I'm going to sort of look for as I work through the program myself, and some things that you guys can look at yourselves, trying to work out where your threshold might be, if you get changes in FTP, how does your heart rate relate to what's happening, and so on, and basically how you can work out if you're getting any sort of progression. So this was my first session on Tuesday. It was 9 tempo intervals of 4 minutes, and then I had 9 1-minute efforts at threshold. So my threshold was set at 250 watts. So these tempo session efforts were set around the 215 mark. We will carry these out in Zwift, but it was being controlled based on my FTP. So the first things I start to look at is the correlation of having a look at power to heart rate. So you can see the warm up here, right, as we started just ramping up in power, we're obviously getting a corresponding ramp in heart rate. So at the end of that first little interval, you can see at 217 watts I'm at 152 heart rate, so that's upper tempo for me. Couple of more little efforts and then we're into the first block. So the first block sort of holding 215, and you can see how at the start of the effort heart rate's down around 122, bang, power straight up to 216, 131 heart rate, and we're sort of halfway through the interval and my heart rate starts to catch up. So I'm at 156 for 213 watts. Now the big thing there for me is I normally race around the 165 heart rate mark, which is around threshold, so threshold being 250. So to me that's quite a high heart rate. I normally wouldn't expect to see it that high that early in a session, right, but that's the way it is. So as I can sort of look as I go through each one, I'm getting, you can just see that heart rate starting to creep up. The wattages are the same, but look, I'm now in the 160s. Okay, 165, 166. These are sort of, for a tempo session, these heart rates are a bit crazy, but it's really my first session on the bike, so it's just an indication of where my fitness level is at the moment. And it's as I do the sessions again this week, then I'll be looking to see how those heart rates are changing. So look, I'm upwards around 168, 170 mark. So by the time I finish the last interval, 169, that's normally my race heart rate, so I'm getting hammered pretty much. Then we're straight into the 1-minute efforts. These were quite hard for me. 250 watts. Look at that, heart rate's climbing, and then eventually I maxed out at 180. I just died basically, so I skipped a couple, did a couple more, skipped, did the last one. I know I was pretty much toast by that stage. Alright, so that was that session. No real expectations given that was my first session. The endurance day, basically rode with a couple of guys in the shop. No real structure with this session. We just basically got on Zwift and pretty much just sort of half flogged ourselves, I suppose. So there wasn't any real structure, as you can see. I just wanted a reasonably solid session. The wattages are all over the shop, but that's pretty typical of what you would see in a bunch ride. So you compare that to the previous session with very specific intervals, compared to an unstructured session, obviously riding the different terrains in Zwift. Heart rate's maxed out up in the 160s, wattage is still around the 200, 220 mark. Okay, we'll go forward to the Thursday. So this was a variation. This way. This is a variation on Tuesday's session. So rather than doing 4-minute tempos and then doing the thresholds at the end, this time we were doing the 4 minutes tempo with the threshold session of the threshold effort straight after it, and then bang, we're straight into another tempo effort. So a little bit lower tempo, and then bang, we're into threshold. What I had done is, because the first session on the Tuesday was so hard, I actually backed it off, remembering that on a trainer it's always going to be a little bit harder on the trainer, so I backed off the wattages a little bit. So again, looking at my heart rates here, for the same sort of, well, slightly lower wattages, so you'd expect to see slightly lower heart rates. Good thing here to look at is these are only 1 minute efforts, right? So my heart rate at the start of that effort's at 142. By the end of the effort is 150 odd. So for anyone that just trains with heart rate, it's a good example of if you're trying to do an effort with heart rate. If you look at it from a power point of view, bang, I'm at my target wattage from the beginning to the end, but my heart rate's really only getting up at the end of the interval. So depending on the length of that interval, it depends how long it takes that heart rate to get up. So that's why training with power is a much more accurate way to hit those zones. Alright, so I had a look at those. So we did 2 blocks of 4 on Thursday. They felt a lot better, obviously because I'd lowered the wattage a bit. But as you can see, my heart rate's around that high 140s, 150 mark. It was a pretty solid little session. Then on the Friday, we just did what we call the Zwift challenge, which was I did a couple of laps in the shop, and we were just looking at did a couple of the sprints, I think. So, oh, it's not even in there. I don't know where that's gone. Awesome. Have to upload that manually. And then we had a race on Sunday. So it's a 30-minute crit. It was meant to be B grade, but I got shafted because A grade were in it as well. But yeah, it's local, it's not too bad. So the thing to look at here when I'm sort of looking at, there's no power, obviously I don't have power on my bike at the moment, so I'm mainly looking at heart rates. So start of the crits down here, and obviously heart rate's climbing. You can see that we're on a little block. Right, heart rate's climbing till I basically maxed out at about 170. Now when you compare that to what I was doing in the shop, it's my dog barking, Snowy wants to know why I'm not playing with him. In the shop I was easily getting up into the 160s and 170s, but after only sort of 4 or 5 days of riding, I've noticed for what was a pretty hard race, so that's 160s, that's sort of where I'd sort of be racing at, the sort of 160 mark. So I'm sort of noticing already that there's a bit of a drop off in my heart rate. So what I'm going to look at for this week, when I repeat all of these sessions, so all these sessions we will do again. Okay, so we'll do the same mix up, same endurance. The threshold sessions has a few extra intervals. So what I'm looking to see is, for the same wattages, what's my heart rate doing, and I'm expecting to see, as the weeks progress, I'm expecting to see that heart rate drop as my wattages or my FTP comes up. So total for the week was 5 hours 25 minutes, which is epically massive. Huge 124 kilometers. T-score of 304. So what really matters to me is the T-score. I'm not interested in the K's necessarily. It's more the training stress score, which is a combination of your time and intensity. So how much time at what level of intensity have I been riding for that week, and how much fatigue does it generate. So given my 0 CTL that I have at the moment, no training load, I'm basically starting from scratch in terms of that. So if we have a look at what the graph's actually going to look like, so here's where I started a couple of weeks ago with a CTL of 5.98, which is really 0. And then you can see as the days have gone on, my load's starting to build slowly but surely. This is acute training load, so this is a 7-day average compared to a 42-day average. If I then bring in fatigue on top of that, so you can see straight away, I've come in obviously fresh as a daisy, and then my fatigue's obviously going through the floor. Not too bad at the moment as I bring the load on. So we'll keep an eye on that as well. So all good, first week done. I'll probably try to keep the analysis a little bit shorter each week, just sort of touching on things that I notice that are changing rather than just sort of going through the whole thing. Thanks guys, talk soon.